So I think let's go here for a second and let's discuss what are some reasons that a teacher might avoid children. Like, what are some reasons?
Because they might give you a breakdown or something. you're about to pull out your hair, baby.
Right.
Well,
I mean, very much.
I mean, I can definitely say
that you avoid children.
It's a child avoider.
So today we have Tyler, and he's a child avoider. And he's going to discuss with you all the ramifications of that.
My name's Tyler, and I'm a child avoider.
Yeah. Welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast. Today's episode is entitled Hide and Seek. Today, we're going to discuss a very serious topic. It affects thousands of teachers nationwide. And that topic is called child avoidance. But first, a word from our sponsor.
In today's educational community, there's a fast-growing epidemic that affects thousands of teachers. The symptoms start small, but quickly progress to a condition that becomes career-threatening: child avoidance. Symptoms of child avoidance include runny nose, itchy watery eyes, headaches, expressions of irritation, frequent bouts of victimization, excessive copying, moodiness and irritability, sudden distance from children, feelings of invisibility, unnecessarily long periods of silence, strong urges for isolation, and a genuine longing for social media. If you or a loved one have fallen victim to child avoidance, contact the Teach Bigger offices at info@teachbigger.com. If you don't get help from Teach Bigger, then please get help somewhere.
So, child avoidance, what is it exactly? Child avoidance
is
in my experience. Yeah, it's avoiding children. In my experience and my observation of teachers that I've worked with and not worked with, there is a certain demeanor, or just like certain things that teachers do to not have to be able to like supervise children.
And because, look, at the end of the day, discipline and supervision is hard.
Yeah, it is. And you have to constantly be on, and you have to give 100% of yourself to make sure that things go the right way. And sometimes I see that teachers just need just a moment for themselves.
Right.
And that moment usually happens while kids are still in the room. And
because they're always there.
And so it's different tasks or different things that that happen to come up whenever there's a situation that they can't handle necessarily, or they just feel overwhelmed, and so they just need a second to themselves. So they do a couple of things that they can have some alone time almost, or take themselves out of the situation either mentally or physically. And the kids suffer for that. And so at least kids unsupervised. And usually it's recurring. So
well, and the thing is this, as a teacher, you have those moments where you're like, I just need 30 seconds. I just need 5 minutes and I can do this. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you can't do that. You have to be with your kids. And unfortunately, I've seen situations where teachers actually leave the room and the kids are unattended. Yeah. Like, that's the most drastic and the worst thing you can do. You don't leave the children unattended.
Right. You have to watch the children.
There are only a few ways to get fired from your job. Okay. And like messing with money is one of them, and messing with kids is another. And when you leave kids alone, that is a reason to not hire you again. So don't do that.
And the younger the kid, they don't have freedom. And so the first time that they see an adult is not 100% engaged, they like jump on it. So that you probably heard of kids throwing things, or like that's when kids misbehave the most, is whenever a teacher turns their back or something like that. But those are all opportunities that kids see that there's not supervision happening. So,
and I know what some people are thinking right now. You're going, well, they don't give me no time to do nothing, and I got to go to the bathroom, and so I'm going to go and they can deal with it.
Bathroom.
Well, you can't do that.
I know.
You can't do it. You have to have a system in place. You got to get to know the person next door. You got to have a buddy. You got to have a neighbor, and you make sure your class is supervised no matter what.
So, here's some things I might have heard. To go to the office here to make a couple copies, or maybe I'm gonna take attendance here.
Ooh, I hate that one. That
Or
was
you
my
know, if you're teaching a class and then another adult might walk in, and then you're talking to the adult and your class is still there waiting, or just so many different administrative tasks that all of a sudden come up to just get you out of the situation. These are some of the symptoms or like evidence that you could possibly be that. And it's natural for us as adults to, want some time to kind of just take a breather. But just be aware of that. If maybe some of the things that we're talking about, you might fit into the classification. You could just do a self-check and self-reflection.
So I think let's go here for a second and let's discuss what are some reasons that a teacher might avoid children. Like, what are some reasons?
Because they might give you a breakdown or something. You're about to pull out your hair, baby.
Right.
Well,
I mean, very much.
I mean, I can definitely say that
you avoid children.
it's a child avoider.
So today we have Tyler, and he's a child avoider. And he's going to discuss with you all the ramifications of that.
My name's Tyler, and I'm a child avoider.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, like you get in front of the class, and you don't know what to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's a good thing.
I love that.
And I think it goes hand in hand with procedures, which I know that you guys have talked about before. Like when everything goes according to plan, which if you're doing your procedures correctly, it will. Then you realize that you
should,
except for when it doesn't. But
then you end up with like 30 minutes of class where you're like,
what do I do?
whoa. Like it happened to me multiple times where I was like, I have 15 minutes of class.
Yeah.
And I have nothing.
Well, look, and I think Tyler brought up a great point, and it is this. Whenever you really have good procedures in place and good practice, especially if you haven't in the past and then you start making changes, one of the things that you'll discover is that you don't plan enough content, because now you're not spending all your time disciplining, and so therefore now you have more time to teach, but you didn't plan what to teach, so now you're stuck. And that is a reason that people become child avoiders, because they don't know what to do in the moment.
And so that to go along with that, you don't know what to say. If things are going really badly in a class, and then you don't know how to fix it, and there might be some opportunity for you to just like remove yourself out of the situation. That's what I've seen also. If like a teacher might come in or something, can you watch my class? Or hey, I have to go make copies or anything like that, and the class is out of control. I've seen that several times. So I don't know how to correct the bad behavior in my class right now, or things are out of control. I don't know what to do on that end too.
So the first reason that someone might become a quote unquote child avoider is from a lack of preparation. Okay, or not sure what to do in the situation, not sure what to teach. The second reason you just kind of hit on is when the majority of students are not in compliance behaviorally. So a lot of times the idea is, well, if I just ignore them, maybe they'll go away, kind of thing. Like, nobody's fighting, so I'll just kind of let them talk, and I'm just going to retreat, and I'm not going to address it this time. Right now, you are setting yourself up for failure, because when you don't address something, you accept something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to say, I think I felt like the peak of that, because when we had our spring concert, this past spring, the power went out right before we were supposed to go on and play.
Really?
If anything could happen, it will happen.
Yeah, that was terrible.
So
the worst.
So we had kids everywhere. We had the junior high there. We had the high school there. We had junior high top band kids in the band hall. We had junior high bottom band kids in the PE room. We had high school kids spread out everywhere. The lights went out. Everything, and
they went out for like over an hour.
Yes.
It wasn't like they flickered and came back on and the kids all screamed.
They went on forever.
There was no power in the school.
And there was, how do you plan for that? So then one of the other teachers who was supposed to be there like helping us disappeared. Right. So now I have over 300 kids that I'm responsible for because they decided to disappear. So when you avoid kids, it's not really that you're avoiding them. You're really putting them off onto somebody else or something else. Like the problem doesn't go away now that there is a problem, but you make someone else's life harder.
And I just want to say this. I got the opportunity to be just a bystander at this event, and I would like to say publicly here to everyone here, I was really proud of how well you handled the situation, Tyler, because
thank you.
You kept the kids focused, and I could tell you had a plan going, and you made them latch on to what they knew, which was good. So you had procedures in place, and so I was able to see that you were thinking on the spot, and you made sure that you gave your attention to the kids while everything, there's a lot going on, but they still did a really good job because you instilled the good procedures in them. So I was really proud of you there. Yeah. So I won't compliment you too much, but there you go.
Oh, well, thanks.
So
yeah.
So, we have the issue of maybe poor planning or a lack of certainty of what to do content wise. Then you've got the idea that maybe kids aren't in compliance with behavior and I don't feel like dealing with it. Okay. What are some other reasons that people might avoid?
So whenever you're around kids, you're like on the clock. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much about being paid, but you are the adult in the room. And if something goes wrong, it's your fault. Usually, like it's something that you could have done or something like that. So I think sometimes the pressure that you feel whenever you're around kids, it gets a bit much for some people because some people, they handle stress differently. And just to not be around kids, it takes you away from that pressure. And so if I can make a professional excuse to be able to step out for a second, that takes the pressure off of me that I'm not the adult in the room at the moment. And if I can pass it on to someone else for that moment when things are bad, that's better for me at that moment.
That's so true. There was a I felt this when my first few weeks of teaching during my first year. Like when I saw another teacher walking by when I was trying to I walked my kids back outside to work on procedures and they're still talking and misbehaving and stuff. I immediately felt this stress of oh my God, they're looking at me. They're telling that I'm not a good teacher. So I felt like I had to do something when in reality, I was already doing it. I needed to just keep.
So I don't know if fellow teachers that are within the sound of my voice now, but whenever I'm out somewhere and there are kids unattended, I feel that same pressure. Even if I don't know the kids and there are no other adults around, I feel the pressure that I still have to
like at the mall.
I have to react if they do things right. I'm keeping an eye on them if they're unsupervised, and if something happens, I feel like I have to correct them. So if it's the summertime or I'm off the clock necessarily, or on the weekend and there are unsupervised kids somewhere, I get really irritated because I feel like it puts me back on the clock. So I think that pressure thing is something to think about. And it's like an evaluation point too. So it's definitely real.
Yeah. And, I think another reason that people avoid is because they get tired. Yeah. It's just, I've been doing this all day and I'm tired. I've been doing this all week. Yeah. I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm tired.
Yeah.
But you can't give up.
Right.
If you're going to say that you're going to be in the profession and you're going to have the opportunity to educate kids, they need your best. You cannot give up no matter what. So those are just some things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, those are really good.
Well, I was just going to say that when I hit my low, which came pretty early, around November.
Which is normal, I think, for first-year teachers.
I went
pretty late, actually, I think, for first-year teachers. You made it a bit further.
That's good.
I went to one of my good mentors, Chris Pratt.
Oh, he is a good
man.
I wish I would have had that.
I wish I could say that.
And I turned to him and I said, I sat down next to him. I was like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so tired. And I was like, how do you do it? How do you not get tired? And he was typing an email and he continued to type and he looked over at me.
He's never listened to me either. So.
He continued typing his email. He never stopped. And he looked over at me. He said, oh, that's easy. I'm always tired. Yeah. And I only sleep 4 hours a night. Yeah, and I was like, that's not the answer I wanted.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So I think I sleep 5, but hey.
That's why you look so old.
It probably does take its time. Look, I look good for 80. So. Right. All right. So Well, that's no offense to an 80-year-old.
Like an 80-year-old's look bad.
Right, I'm just not 80. But anyway, so let's do this. I'm going to give you 4 warning signs that you might be a child avoider. Okay.
Right. And if you're offended, we're probably talking to you, but it's all out of love, right?
It's all out of love. So check yourself. Make sure that you're not falling into this category. And if you need help, let us know, and we'll help you. Reach out to us.
Yeah.
info@teachbigger.com. Yes. So, all right. So one reason you might be a child avoider, a sign here, is that you say something like this: "Hey, can you watch my class for a second? I have to... ...
Go against the Marcus from Office Depot.
Right. Like, have
It's
you ever
anything.
been,
It is
right.
anything. Hey, can you? And they usually like kind of mumble it a bit. Like,
Right.
hey, because they're embarrassed. Hey, can you watch my class really quickly? I have to,
Right.
go.
Like,
I have to go to the
hey,
restroom.
can you watch my class? I've got to go.
Yeah.
So
I have to go down to the
this is a
office
sign
and like,
right. This is a sign you're dealing with a child avoider.
do
Okay?
not ask anyone to watch your class.
And then it's real awkward. An administrator walks in like, "Hey, this isn't your class. Where's so and so?" And you're like, "Oh, they're getting."
Now listen. Now listen. Now listen. Like, don't get us wrong. There are instances where someone
happen.
might have to cover your class.
Right.
But if you say this more than once
A week.
a week, or if you see yourself saying this more than twice a semester, then you might want to reevaluate.
So, I mean, general good practice is you're not going to leave your class. If you have kids in your class, you're there with them.
Yeah.
Okay. You are the teacher and you drive the instruction. They need you to be there. And when you're not, learning is not happening.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. All right. So a second warning sign here for you that you might be a child avoider is this: if you halt instruction to engage with anyone and everyone who comes into your room.
I love this one.
Okay. So look, interruptions are inevitable. Okay. Interruptions are inevitable and people are going to come into your room. But a child avoider looks at this as an opportunity. Right. An opportunity that I don't have to teach right now because the janitor has come in to pick the janitor has come in to pick up the trash. Okay. So here's what I would do. If the custodian came in, they're going to empty the trash can, right? I'm just going to keep teaching and I'm going to let them do their deal. Right. But if I'm a child avoider and the custodian walks into the classroom, mostly what's a child avoider going to do?
They would immediately look at whoever walked in the door and have a full conversation with them. They might even leave the front of the classroom and go to wherever the person that came into the door. So normally in my experience, whenever someone walks in and I'm teaching, they feel so uncomfortable to even say anything to me because I'm so into what I'm doing. They will turn around and walk out. And which is good, unless it's emergency and they might stand to the side. And then I would signal them over somehow and I would still teach. And then they would have to somehow get whatever information to me quickly while I'm still looking at the class.
Right.
And then, then they would be able to leave. So I've had so many administrators come into my room if they had to give me some information and I am still teaching and they turn around and walk out and they say, I did not want to interrupt instruction because I can tell that you were on in a mode. So.
And I'll say that I was in a situation where I was actually teaching at the high school, and there was a situation. There was a lockdown or something that happened at the junior high, and procedures when there's lockdown there, they lock down the whole district. And the AP walked in and he flagged me down. He stopped me or whatever. And he was like, I need you right now. So I stepped off to the side. He told me what was going on. And we kept it the procedures or whatever. Cause I'm not on that campus. I don't really know what a lot of the procedures are there. And, so if the administrator needs to get to you, needs to talk to you, and it's important, they're going to stop you.
They are.
Let the person who comes in your room stop you if they need you.
Mm-hmm.
Look, an administrator is not ever going to be offended that you didn't address them simply because you were teaching kids.
Right.
Right. So you can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, and I definitely don't.
Right. So a child avoider is going to see anyone walk into the room, a kid,
Oh,
an
hey,
adult,
Mr. Johnson, how are you? We're just
right.
here, and usually here's
I
what
hate
happens.
that.
Here's what happens. Said teacher would, maybe doing instruction, and then they immediately make contact with whoever came through the door, and they want to tell you what they're doing.
Right.
Like,
We're just working
in
on
here
this
doing
today.
this,
Right.
to validate that they're teaching. So
Right.
if you ever tell people what you're doing,
You're probably a
you
child
might
avoider.
want to stop
right.
that.
Because you don't need to tell somebody
Right,
what
'cause
you're
they can
doing. It
see
should be
that.
clear.
Yeah,
Right.
so.
So, somebody comes in and they're like, oh, hey, can I help you? No, you don't need to help me. You need to help the kids. Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
All right. So don't halt your instruction to engage, because I think a child avoider looks at that as an opportunity. Like, yes,
Another
I came
adult in the room.
I can, and then a child avoider can justify it by saying like, oh, well, they're an adult and we're going to show respect, so I'm going to talk to them.
Yeah.
No, that's you being disrespectful to your position and to the kids. So something to think about. So, okay, number 3, a third warning sign that you might be a child avoider is if an electronic device is your shield.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so I've walked into some rooms with child avoiders where I'm like, where is the teacher? Oh, they're sitting at their desk behind the computer. Like, I can't even see them. I didn't know they were here because they have like this invisible barrier that is their laptop screen. And then, oh, well, I'm trying to make this slide, or I need to check attendance, or all these other things that are not instructing students. It could have all been done at a different time. Now, look, I get it. Sometimes things go wrong with technology or something comes up. That's fine. But not to the point where you need to walk to your desk and sit down behind your laptop, right? It needs to be happening on the fly.
See, I live by like a 10-second rule, because this is my opinion. Like, I have no idea if this is real or not, but in my opinion, between 7 to 10 seconds is enough to make it feel like it's been 5 minutes to the students.
I think that's real.
So,
right.
like, if something goes wrong, because there's been multiple times where things have gone wrong with technology in my room, and if I can't fix it within 7 to 10 seconds, then I have to change what I'm doing, because they're not going to stay doing what they're doing. Like kids are, especially nowadays, kids understand technology and they understand that it breaks, and a lot of them will probably try to come up.
Yeah,
and help,
usually they will help.
try to come help, and especially if kids will try to come help, then that's like even better. Hey, why don't you try to fix this? They're probably not going to fix it. Maybe they will. If they do, awesome. If they don't, whatever. Then it gives me time to get those kids, because it's usually the rowdy kids that want like the attention, that want to come over and help. So like, okay, so they're occupied. I'm on the fly trying to figure something else out because the technology didn't work. Now I'm doing something else. And usually within the next like 3 to 5 minutes, I have already started another activity, and either I've allowed that kid some time to try to fix it. If he is able to fix it, then we do it. If not, I tell him to go sit down, and then we'll work on it later.
Right.
Yeah. Even something as like an iPad or something like that, where you can move around the room and you still have it in your hand, it is still a device that's in between you and the kids. And I've seen some teachers, they'll just carry that around, and if there's not attendance, they're doing something else on it. But that's like it's like a safety blanket type of thing. And I think to be aware of that, like even putting that away, even though you might be closer to the kids, that's still something that's obstructing the communication pathway between you and the kids. So not only sitting behind a desk, beware if you have things in your hands, because that is something that's blocking communication between you and the kids.
Now, I will say this, and maybe you guys can tell me this if this was good or bad. But
It's bad. If you did, it's bad. That was good.
Well, anyway, there was multiple times where I'd walk around my room with a spiral notepad and a pencil, and I was always doing something different. I was either writing down ideas for like future lessons, either assessing students, or just plain just had it to make it think that I was writing down their names or whatever. And as I walked around the room, they thought that I was like monitoring them and like writing them down, because I knew that I couldn't keep my computer to like jot down ideas as I came up with them for like whatever we're doing. So would you agree that a piece of paper and a pencil is mightier than walking around with an iPad?
Well, I mean, I think, okay, so if you do that sometimes, I think it's okay. I do know that there might have been a teacher that they used that pad kind of as their safety net. Like they always walked around with that pad in front of them. So I think you just have to be aware and not to have it like all the time. If it's something that you feel like I have to have this, like this in my hands while I'm in the room because this is like my thing, then you have to evaluate. It can be just as bad as like an iPad or anything like that. But if you use it from time to time, to play mind games with the kids. I don't know.
Well, I'll
okay.
kind of speak to that because I have done that before.
I have
early
done
in
it
my
too.
career.
I've
But
done it
here's
before.
what I'm gonna say. Here's what I've come to believe this: lying to students is not a good classroom management strategy. So, in other
I'm not a good teacher.
Well, that's why
that's why you're here. On
We're trying to
Teacher
fix
Figure.
you.
We're trying to help you. No, and I mean, not to say that I've never done it or whatever, and it is effective to an extent. But
Yeah.
after a while, that notepad, it totally loses its meaning because they realize there's no consequence to follow. It was just a threat.
Yeah.
And so then the result is we can still act bad. All he's
Yeah.
going to do is hold a notepad.
Yeah.
So that is child avoidance because you're avoiding discipline. You're avoiding actually teaching behavior and giving consequences when they're necessary. So, I mean, I would say that once or twice it may be an effective tactic, but so is screaming at them. They're going to shut up for a minute, but that isn't going to get you the results in the long run. So it goes back to procedures and practicing and making sure those things are in place. Okay. So, when it comes to email, when it comes to, your phone, taking attendance, all these things, you have to plan that in your day and you have to have a designated time that you do it so then you can commit to doing what you need to do in class. So, All right, let's look at a final warning sign that you might be a child avoider. And I think this one's really powerful because I've seen it done a lot. I've done it. And again, kind of like the whole notepad thing, in retrospect, I realized this is not at all effective. And it's when you hide in plain sight. Okay.
I'm glad you said that you've done it because hide is a key word in this.
So look, have you ever seen this, or maybe you've done it? And like I said, I've done it, especially early on in my career. The kids are talking, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're mad, and so what do? You stand there with your hands on your hips in silence,
And you look at them.
and you just look at them until you finally get the awkward silence where everybody's quiet. All you're doing is hiding in plain sight. You're refusing to teach. That's just as effective. You might as well walk out of the room because there's no instruction happening. They aren't learning, and you're being passive aggressive to try to prove a point. And in the long run, you're not teaching behavior. All you're doing is being threatening. So how is that going to fix your problem? It might once or twice, but just like the whole notepad thing, it's not an effective classroom management strategy. Effective classroom management is training. You have to train up the children in what they need to do, and then they'll stick with it till the end.
Now, I think this also, okay, because I can say that I've done this,
Yes.
but I have I have that relationship with the kids, and I don't do it for long. What I would do if there's like the room is not right, I will stop
Right.
for a second and just kind of let them see
Yes.
like things are not the right way. Go ahead and fix it.
Yes.
And I'm letting you fix this. I'm not pouting, right? Because I don't do that. But I'm just gonna stop, and I stopped for a reason, and then they usually fix it.
And I agree with you.
so, yeah.
That can be effective.
Yeah,
because
and my face
it's a-
doesn't change. I just step
Right.
back for a second and I stop instruction. But I have that class, like my class set up where if I just stand there, they're not going to go crazy. They're going to see like what's like we're doing something wrong,
Right.
So we can fix
because
it.
it's a change in the energy and the pacing of the room.
Right.
So that then does become
Yeah, so you can also use that, but you have to have like things in place, and they have to like have that respect for you.
Right.
So that can be a tool, but if you haven't like put in the work and procedures and like the trust, if you stand there, it doesn't matter. They're gonna stand there. They're gonna look at you and keep doing what they want to do.
right, and it's not something you're going to do on a daily basis. It's going to be every once in a while when things.
Oh yeah,
are
don't
just
do it every
really
day. Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, and then
Right.
you can get more from it if you use that tactic.
Right.
Kind of like making him stand up or sit down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So a lot of times what Tyler's referring to is a lot of times us doing band, there are times when we stand up. Okay. And then there are times when we sit down to play. And so that's one of the procedures that we teach is standing up, how to stand up, exactly when to stand up, what you need to look like when you stand up, and then consequently, how does that look when you sit down? And so a lot of times to reset the room or the environment, we'll have the whole band stand up because they know that's more of an attention position and it's more of a way to regain focus. So yeah, it's kind of that similar idea. So, what we're kind of challenging you with today, we're kind of bringing out some points of some practices that you don't want to fall trap to. And I know that a lot of times you run out of ideas, or kids are challenging. They are going to push. And so you have to make sure you stand firm. And I think that the key to all of this is to, first of all, make sure you don't fall into these traps, and then rely on what works, which is training, rely on what works, which is routine, high expectations, and don't move on until you get it right. Sometimes you have to. You may think to yourself, well, we already did that. We already practiced coming out of the room. They already know how to do that. But if they're not doing it, then you've got to train it again.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
And I think that sometimes it can take really short. It can be like 1 or 2 days, and then like bam, they got it. Or it can be like half the year. You know, it can take forever. I know that for my biggest class that I had, it took them all the way up until April, because there were actually the announcements came on during my period, and it wasn't until I know it really threw off the flow of my classroom.
Especially if something like weird happens on the announcement, or the voice of the person on the announcements is like, I don't know, overstimulating to the kids.
Yeah. Well, there's one, like they had a student that would do it, except on Fridays, and it was a really, really low voice. And like you couldn't hear them at all. Like it was a really low voice. You couldn't understand anything that they're saying. So even when my kids finally got quiet, it was still hard to listen to.
Yeah.
But again, my point being is that it took them all the way until mid-April until they figured it out. And then, but when they figured it out, it was great. It sucks that it took them that long, but that just means that next year, when whoever they go to, they're going to have that kind of built in place, and they're going to be more receptive to the next teacher.
Yeah, but you know, the powerful thing is that even though it took a while, and it's not like they never paid attention or it was terrible till April, it just didn't get exactly like you want it.
Exactly,
then.
yes.
But the important thing is that you didn't give up, and that eventually it came through. And the whole thing is, you have to remember, is we're training children for their life.
Yes.
Not just for your class.
Yeah.
And so you're instilling in them some values and procedures that are going to make them good. I mean, let's face it, when you become an adult, if you can't come into a room correctly, into a meeting, you're not going to keep your job very long. Like, you can't just come in doing whatever, acting all crazy. But people do, because they've never been trained differently.
That's true.
So we're in the business of helping kids. We're not in the business of doing what's convenient for teachers.
Teach kids, not content.
Absolutely.
There you go.
That was
Put that on the shirt.
Yeah.
That's a
Teach
Tyler
kids, not content.
Lamond original. Thank you.
Well,
That's good.
yeah, we're gonna put that on the shirt.
If you like a shirt that
You're
says
right.
"Teach kids, not content,"
You can send it to our Teach Bigger Cash app, and we'll send we'll send you a
we
shirt.
do take donations.
Yeah,
So.
I think also just to kind of put it out there, you know, we've kind of joked and stuff about, you know, this topic, and we're just more bringing awareness to some issues that we've seen, and whether you fall into one of these categories or all these categories, it's just to let you know that a lot of teachers face the same things, and if you feel that you might fit into one of these categories, it's okay. And if you maybe just realize after hearing this, like, I don't know, maybe I do. I've said one of these things, you know. It could be one of the things that's like holding something back from your class, or some things as far as structural procedures, things that are not going right. That could be a reason. So that's really, you know, the purpose of this podcast of the Child Avoidance. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in with us today. We hope that you got something out of it. Look, if you have questions or show ideas or comments, or you want to share a story with us, we invite you to email us at info@teachbigger.com. That's info@teachbigger.com. So that's all for today.
All right.
And we'll see you back soon.
okay.